Huge game in the SEC to cover this week for our college football preview as number 5 Ole Miss travels to Georgia to visit the Bulldogs. Stick with us here for this preview. We've got what you should be betting for this game. We're going to talk Trinidad Chambliss. We'll talk about these oftentimes frustrating starts for Ole Miss this season and much, much more. Ninja here with Josie Costigan. Welcome to the channel. Hit that like button. And if you could be so kind, subscribe to the channel if you do not do so already. Josie has put together a fantastic season for her college football picks, so make sure you stick around for that. But Josie, Georgia comes into this one 5-1, wins over Kentucky and Auburn since that loss to Bama, just 2-3-1 against the spread. Not really, Josie, a vintage Georgia team here. So let me ask you this. What is Georgia right now? What is the identity of this football team?
Yeah, we've seen this a lot this college football season. A lot of these historically good teams kind of turning over a new leaf. So Georgia's not really giving that like monster vibe we've seen recently. 5-1. They've kind of been more grinded out than blow you away. Right now, I'd say their identity is just kind of a tough defensive-minded team that just finds ways to win. I think that defense is still their backbone. They only give up 17 points a game and, less than 100 on the ground. But I don't think the offense is totally clicked yet. Gunner Stockton's doing enough to keep them steady, but he's not really lighting it up. I think he's just managing these games rather than taking them over. And that run game's been definitely hit or miss. They're not flashy. They're gritty, but still good enough to beat you when they're not at their best.
And I wanna talk about that run game momentarily, but let's talk about, you mentioned Gunner Stockton. Let's talk about the other quarterback, because in comes Ole Miss here, 6-0, ranked number 5. Just their second road game of the season, though, which is weird. But Trinidad Chambliss is now plus 2,500 in Heisman odds. This is a guy, Josie, that has come to the SEC from D2 Ferris State, now on the road in Georgia. So is this a spot that you think might simply be too big for him?
What is this who is going to be sitting in these 4 Heisman chairs at the end of the season, first of all? I have no idea. But yeah, this is a massive step up for Chambliss. I think, he hasn't even played a true road game this season because he didn't play in Kentucky. He didn't see a snap. So walking into Sanford Stadium, that's a real shock to the system, especially when you're coming from Ferris State. You haven't experienced any level of noise or pressure. The one positive I'll say for Ole Miss, though, is Georgia's not invincible at home anymore. That 33-game win streak got snapped by Bama. So even that 7.5 line isn't crazy big by Georgia standards, especially in Athens. We've seen teams hang around them. Tennessee took them to overtime. Bama beat them outright. So I don't think Ole Miss covering here is far-fetched. And thankfully, they are beatable at home now. We saw that.
Yeah, and Georgia, even when they're lofty home faves, not necessarily a solid bet when they are in Athens. So I want to talk about Ole Miss from a live betting perspective. I mentioned those slow starts that we've seen in a few games this year. Really underwhelming in first quarters this season. Down 7-0 after the first quarter against Kentucky and versus Washington State as well. Down 7-3 after the first quarter against LSU. I know hindsight is 20/20, but if they go down early in this football game, should we think about maybe hammering Ole Miss live?
Yeah, that's a really sharp angle. I think a lot of people forget that live betting is an option. Like you said, Ole Miss has been a slow start a few times this year, but I think once they get going, they're cruising. And it's a testament to Lane Kiffin. I think he's one of the best at making those in-game adjustments, and the numbers back that up. They average over 17 points in the second half, which ranks, in the top 25 in the country. And even by the second quarter, they're putting up 16 points on average, which is the best mark in the nation. So if they go down early, I definitely consider a live bet, especially assuming that underdog spread or money line is going to climb.
Yeah, good call. Signaling out Lane Kiffin there as well. You alluded to the Georgia run game, and I want to talk about that. They want to run the football a lot. Number 23 in the country in terms of attempts per game. That makes 57% of their offense, which puts them 29th in the country. But they haven't exactly been dominant on the ground or anything. 4.5 yards per carry, that's good. It's not eye-popping or anything. But Ole Miss never won for defense, but they rank 105 in the country, allowing 4.8 yards per carry. So is this a game where maybe Georgia does dominate on the ground, control the clock, keep Chambliss off the field, and really establish dominance on the ground?
Yeah, like you said, Georgia's run game's weird because I can't tell if they're good at it or if they just do it a lot. So, yeah, they run a lot, sure, but, they had just 2.5 yards per carry against Auburn last week, and that's definitely not good by any means. Yeah, Ole Miss isn't good against the run, so Georgia's going to have more opportunities in previous weeks, but I don't think they're going to wear them down. I also think Georgia's going to try to mix it up here, try to keep that Ole Miss defense off balance a little bit, open up opportunities in the passing game. Because Chambliss and the Rebels have shown they can move the ball themselves, so the Bulldogs can't really rely on the ground game, which isn't the toughest to begin with, anyways. At the end of the day, I think Georgia's real edge is still their defense, so that's likely what they're going to lean on to try to dictate the game.
Folks at home, if you are looking for a sports book, sign up to FanDuel, and if you bet $5, you can get 300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. All you got to do is sign up. I'll drop a link down below. And make a deposit of at least $5. You place your first cash wager of $5 of any type. And if that bet wins, you get 300 in sportsbook bonus bets. This is for new customers to FanDuel only. So hit that link down below and get signed up today. Okay, Josie, speaking of FanDuel, Ole Miss, 7.5-point road dogs here, plus 230 on the money line for the number 5 team in the nation. The total is 53.5. The overpriced at minus 118. The OddsShark computer is picking a 1-point Ole Miss win. The total going way over. But what are you betting here?
Yeah, I like the over too. I was under the weather yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to really dive into that, but first glance, I like the over. But my first pick is going to be Ole Miss plus 7.5. I think one angle is Ole Miss can survive and can cover when things aren't perfect, as we were talking about. And that also includes dealing with their own mistakes. They've struggled with penalties a lot this season, especially on the road, averaging 86 penalty yards per game when they're away from Oxford. But despite that, they've managed to win tight games and they move the ball efficiently. Again, I think another factor is Georgia's offense hasn't been unstoppable. They've had to grind out wins in a few games, are beatable at home, especially in the SEC, which is rare to see. Ole Miss has the talent to make plays, especially if Lacey continues to find running lanes too. I think he's a deciding factor for the Rebels. So yeah, I think Ole Miss proven they can perform in high pressure situations, and that makes them a solid candidate to cover at least 7.5.